what happened is I was acting in the 80s, working, doing very well, making a living, and I started looking at my reel, and it was, you know, Maria the maid, Maria the gang girl, Maria the pregnant girl.
That's my reel.
Yeah, it was all our reels.
You are in for such a treat. Please welcome Luisa Leschin. I'm so excited to have you, first of all, and I just want to say how proud I am of you. You started as a dancer, and then as a teenager crossed over to acting.
I was taking acting lessons at the same time. When I was a ballet dancer, so not very practical, but I got injured when I was 15, so I had this summer where I couldn't dance, and my mom took me down to HB Studios and enrolled me in an acting class, and I remember screaming at her all the way home from Greenwich Village to the West Side going, "You've ruined my life! What have you done?" I mean, absolutely hysterical. And she's like, "I said what they did. You're as good as that." You know, these scenes. That started the whole trajectory.
And her mother was the most amazing woman ever. I adopted her as my mother, Louise. She made the best tabbouleh. She made the best persimmon pudding.
Tea leaves.
That's how she read my tea leaves. So you started at HB Studio, and for those of you who don't know what HB Studio is, it was the Uta Hagen Herbert Berghoff Studios.
Yeah,
so
which is still there.
And you studied with
Uta Hagen.
How was that?
It was pretty amazing. I was actually one of her youngest students. You couldn't get in unless you were 18, and I was like 17 and a half. You had to get up at 4 in the morning. The line was all the way around the block just to sign up. It was terrifying. She'd look at you and she's like, "Well, you know you're overacting. You know you're indicating." And I'm like, you know, but somehow I did get in, and I studied with her for 3 years, and it was just amazing. It was amazing.
You also went to the High School of Performing
Yes.
Arts. She's just been set up for success. So you were at the High School of Performing Arts, and who was in your class?
Freddie Prinze, yeah. I was in the ballet department. He was in the drama department, and he falls in love with Arlene Guisante. And then she would have none of him. So then he kind of turned to me, and he asked me out a couple of times, as friends, obviously. And he was just so generous. He just wanted to buy me things. Just extremely generous and very kind. His drama teacher made this statement, said he's either going to be hugely famous or there's going to be a tragic ending, and in fact it was both. So it was predictable even then, but
Wow.
yeah.
I just wanted to talk about Freddie because, you know, that's I
yeah,
love
no, he was a doll.
With Uta, what were a couple of the things that you took away that you still use today?
Okay, Uta Hagen was unbelievably disciplined, and it was very technical. You know, she really taught you the building blocks of acting, you know, how to break down a scene, how to break down character, you know, what's my motivation, what's the obstacle, and it was really very Stanislavski method and very rigorous in that discipline. I'm working on a pilot that I sold right now, and I was having some issues with the character and what the character wanted, and I went, duh, you know, so I went back to the Who Am I, which actors are taught to do, did a whole background story for my character, so I went back to that, so I'm still using it. And then what I found when I came out here, I studied with Ken McMillan. He was a great addition because his whole philosophy was forget all the technique and just be in the moment and feel, and just kind of throw it away in that sense, and just be in that moment. So it was a great next step.
And for those of you who don't know Uta Hagen, her book, Respect for Acting, was a book that was used everywhere for actors. That was the first book that I had. I don't know about you, but that was the first acting book that I worked off of. You can still pick it up today and get so much value from it. Definitely. I love her. And just the great teachers that were spawned off from her. Howard Fine, Larry Moss, Roy London. I mean, they're just great teachers that really took what she did and then they brought in their own twist to it.
And every one of her students was terrified. Every scene study class, you know, every Thursday or whatever, I was like, oh my God. I mean, absolutely terrifying every time.
So then you studied 3 years with Uta, and then you came to LA and you started acting.
Yeah, so what happened was I was a ballet dancer since I was 5, and this is what I was going to be. I ended up dancing in a company in Geneva, Switzerland. This was my first kind of crossroads epiphany. I realized I wasn't like the most natural dancer. It was like sheer determination that got me to that point.
And you had polio as a little kid.
Yeah,
So
which is why I started dancing. I realized I was never going to really go all the way with this. So thank God I had already started, adding the acting.
The transition.
Yeah. Not easy, because when you're used to taking 5 classes a day, then you reduce it to 2, and then you're like, why am I doing 2 classes? And then you join a gym. Acting was so much more easy in the sense of preparation, physicality, all of that. And I came out here to launch, a stronger acting career. Because in New York, I actually started doing Spanish language commercials, and I go so far back. I mean, I do feel that I've spanned the Latino trajectory in this business, because in the 70s, I would go into agencies and I had kind of long hair and I looked the way I did, and they're like, oh God, no, you're way too ethnic. Trust me, you're never going to do a commercial, ever. I'd literally get asked to leave the offices and just kicked out, and then started doing some Spanish language commercials.
Even though they said no to you, that it wasn't going to happen, you turned that around.
Yes, I mean, you have to. You have to, get mad, get even. You had to really fight that, because, it was hard not to believe it.
So Luisa was not only doing commercials, Spanish-speaking commercials, voiceovers, and on-camera commercials, but she became the commercial queen. She was doing all commercials, and some of them even got to cross over.
Yes.
And that was fantastic.
Which at the time, here you are, you speak perfect English, perfect Spanish, and I'd talk to the producers, Johnson & Johnson, whatever, and McDonald's, and go, guys, you could save so much money to shoot English and Spanish right here, same set, same actors. It's like, oh no, we couldn't do that, it's like, I couldn't understand it.
No common sense. They had no common sense.
It all comes back to
common
that.
sense.
Seriously, common sense is worth more than IQ points, for sure. I think so.
While you were doing commercials, there were a few occasions when you got to work with the casting director and be a reader.
Yes.
I want to talk about what you learned from that.
I was doing a lot of Spanish language commercials, and so casting directors approached me and said, hey, will you help out and listen for the accents, because they varied so much. Anglos don't know if they're hearing Puerto Rican, Cuba, whatever. The one thing that I have taken away from casting, and even as a producer, writer, and stuff, if you're good, if you're prepared, if you have talent, there's levels.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that walk in and they're like, boom, head and shoulders, and it's like, wow. And they are above the crowd, and it's just that next level up, and they're undeniable.
That it quality.
Yeah, they walk in and they just have that chispa or whatever. You can't really buy that. You can't really study that. You can't really, you just have to have that. You just stand out right away. I don't know if it's fair, unfair. It's just what it is. You have people who just have that light, that whatever. When I was working on the George Lopez show as a writer, producer, and I would go to castings, I got incredibly upset and disillusioned, because people would come in, nail it. I mean, nail the character, nail the audition. You're like, it's gotta be this guy, or this woman. Our executive producer would go, yeah, they really nailed it, but you know what? He would overthink it. Maybe we should go opposite and, get something twisted a little, and now have someone who nailed the jokes, nailed the character, nailed what we had in mind. Let's go against the type of this. And it never worked. Somebody else would get cast. It wasn't intrinsic in their bones and body. The jokes wouldn't work. We'd have to change jokes, and then we'd have to reduce the jokes. And finally, what would end up happening is the executive producer would go, you see, day players are just awful to work with. They just don't bring it. And it was like, no, I saw this happen. I saw how this happened. And it was depressing.
Guess what? I've got this fabulous little bundle just for you, because you are a fabulous actor. I got it for you. So what do I got for you? Let me tell you what I got for you. I got the PR cheat sheet, which every actor needs. You need to know how to do your own PR until you get that job where you can pay for a PR person. Then I have the 12-step audition. That's another cheat sheet. You know, sometimes you get freaked out at auditions and you don't know what to do. Well, my 12-step audition cheat sheet will help you and guarantee that you will slam your audition every time. And the third thing I got for you is the casting sites. I have a list of casting sites so you can go and just submit yourself for that next big part. How does that sound? It sounds good, doesn't it? Sometimes actors think that it's their fault.
No.
It's their fault that
Yes.
they didn't get it, and they
Yes.
don't understand the process. So this is
They don't understand.
important to talk about.
Nowadays, it's gotten even worse.
When you were on George Lopez and you were producing, and you would have casting sessions, you would get to see unfairness happen.
Yeah, I've been working on Just Add Magic for Amazon. Now the auditions are on video. Rarely does anybody come in. What generally happens is you're in the middle of your workday, production day, and writing, and I mean you're just inundated. And oh my gosh, now we have to cast this part that's going to work in a day or two. You're looking at it on your iPad, and you open it up, and it's like the part of Kathy, and you have 8 to 10 to 12 choices, and it all appears on you see the little tiny headshots.
Right. The thumbnail.
Yeah, the thumbnail. I, as an actress, made myself a promise that I would open every single one and look at the auditions. And what I would see the execs do, director and executive producers, they would just go, oh, okay, she looks like she might be the part, and skip a bunch. So from the thumbnail, there's already a cut sometimes.
That's why it is important to have a hot thumbnail that gets people's eye.
The thumbnail, I would try to make it look like the character, and not, there was a case here where we were on set, we're shooting, and we had to cast a really important part for Just Add Magic. And the director's directing, and I'm sitting there. I said, well, I'll look through the castings. I see these pictures in there of women, and some of them look too glamorous, to this, to that. But I had made myself that promise, so I'm going through all of them. The very last one looked nothing like what we thought, And her picture was too glamorous. She was very done up, and I'm like, that's absolutely not the part. But I said, I've got to check her out. She gave an amazing reading. She looked nothing like the thumbnail picture that was there, and it would have never been opened by other people. She did an amazing read, and she ended up being a recurring. She did about 6 to 8 episodes.
Wow.
Yeah, we cast a girl who became a recurring for 3 seasons, and she taped herself. It can go all different ways.
It's not a bad thing. It's just actors need to know all the information. There is no formula,
Yes.
but what you want to do is be prepared. I want to just hit on that because since you started as a dancer, and then you went into acting, voiceovers, and then writing, and now you're a producer. You're a showrunner on series. I want to talk about actors that you see that come to the room and aren't prepared, or that videotape that aren't really prepared, because now that they're not coming in the room, do you see people on tape that...
Honestly, no. That's, I think, what was so painful for me, was that I would look at the series of 8 or 10, 12. Every single one of them was terrific. Nailed the joke, had the timing, fully prepared. Every single one of them. What was painful was that we would all make our selections, and then the showrunner was the one who would make his final pick. All these other people who did wonderful jobs were kind of gone. There was no accumulation. There wasn't like, wow, let's remember this person. Occasionally that does happen. Occasionally, yes. You go, this person was really, really awesome. Let's try to remember. But no one actually
busy.
writes down the
You're
name.
moving, you're doing
Ideally
your
you
stuff.
would write the name down.
Right.
Occasionally I would send a little note to the casting director, go, great casting call, or this guy was awesome. Occasionally if I had the time, because I know what that does to people, for people. There was an example where there was 12 women who got in their car, and put the makeup, put the clothing, get in their car, go through traffic, and it was one word. It was like something almost false, and it's like, oops, that was it. Everyone was amazing, fantastic, did a great job. We selected one person. Something else came up, another woman, it was like a teacher role or something, and I go, can we not cast from these women? Or at least call them back for, and it's like, no, we'll just do a separate casting. And it was like, ugh, it's hard.
Luisa Leschin was one of the founding members of Latinos Anonymous. And for those of you who don't know what Latinos Anonymous is, it was one of the best, greatest Latino sketch shows ever. And it was Luisa, it was Armando Molina, it was Rick Najera, and Diane Rodriguez. And they had this amazing show that they would take all over the country. They wrote a book.
We've had over 50 productions.
And let's talk about how that came about.
Well, that really changed everything for me. What happened is I was acting in the 80s, working, doing very well, making a living, and I started looking at my reel, and it was, Maria the maid, Maria the gang girl, Maria the pregnant girl.
That's my reel.
Yeah, it was all our reels. And at the Odyssey, they were trying to do a Latino repertory company. So
yes, we were all part of
Ron
it. They took
Sassi
every Latino in the...
brought the cream of the crop of every Latino actor in Los Angeles, and we were all in this repertory training company. And so what happens is that it brought us all together. Those of us that knew each other didn't know each other, and we started talking, comparing notes, and it was like, oh my God, I mean, where are we with this, And it was becoming extremely clear that it wasn't changing, and you were pretty powerless to change it when you're on the set, and you show up and you go, why do I have purple eyeshadow that goes up to here? And they go, because that's what Mexican girls wear. And why, I may be a housekeeper, but why do I have dirty clothes and holes in it? They're clean. Why am I dirty? All stereotype. And we really came to the conclusion that the way to change it is through the writing. And you can't do it on the set because you're the replaceable in and out person. So the four of us did not make it into the first repertory.
We got kicked out, people. That's what happened.
Well,
we got
quit.
kicked out.
The four of us said, well, if we had given as much time to ourselves and to maybe coming up and writing something as we've done to going to these rehearsals and practices and whatever, we'd have something. So we just said, let's write some sketches about being Latinos in America, whatever that means. I wrote one about body image. I wrote one about liking to date blonde guys. And then we put it up ourselves. We produced it, and then it was a big hit. I wrote a publicity little piece, and I said, Latinos Anonymous is as hilarious as Saturday Night Live at its best. It got picked up by every newspaper because I didn't know at the time. But, a lot of times they just pick it up, and we kind of were really
Yes,
it was no lie. But anyway, that got us a pilot deal. We did everything kind of ass backwards. It got us a pilot deal at ABC. Got into the Writers Guild. We got big literary representation without having written any television or anything. Rick was the only one who'd written some TV scripts. After that experience, I thought, well, gee, I should write some specs. And then I was very fortunate that I applied to the Disney program and I got in. So that was kind of the launch.
From the Disney program, they put you on a show.
No.
Oh, they did not?
No. This was like the beginning of the Disney program. Okay. You did a year's training. They didn't put you on a show like after 3 months or whatever. If there was a show available, which at that time it was Ellen and there were very few ABC sitcoms. So no, they didn't put me on a show. I was left to then scramble.
What was the first show you worked?
I got on Brothers Garcia. It was a huge hit for Nickelodeon. It was live action, and it was their #1 hit show. So I was very fortunate to get on that.
And a lot of great people actually worked on that show. Sylvia.
Yeah.
It was a good school for Latino writers.
The first season, the staff was Sylvia, who was my boss, and I was her staff writer. And the two of us broke 13 episodes.
Wow.
Outlined them. It was baptism by fire, which was great.
Yes.
It was a tremendous learning experience. It was a great entry-level position because you had to do everything. Gave a lot of writers opportunity for sure.
And a lot of comics, because before that he had the stand-up show.
Yeah, and then from there I was fortunate enough to be able to get on the George Lopez show.
And then from there you did Everybody Hates Chris.
Yeah, I did 5 seasons of the George Lopez show, 122 episodes.
Wow.
The only female to stay from beginning to end. Then went to Everybody Hates Chris, which was an amazingly fabulous job. And then worked on 100 episodes of Are We There Yet? Worked at Disney for Austin and Ally. And then worked on East Los High. And then
another groundbreaking show
very
for Latinos.
Much so.
Yes.
That show, I think, really funneled in a lot of writers and gave them great opportunity. I was lucky enough to jump from half hour to 1 hour and worked on Dusk Till Dawn.
Awesome. That's Robert Rodriguez's show.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
If you can say one thing you got from these shows, one thing that you took away that you now incorporate again.
The George Lopez show was a network show. It was top of the line in that sense, and it was very hierarchical. I think that's changed now with cable and with streaming. If you're a staff writer, you can get to go to production meetings, you get to go to editing, you get to do all that on that.
It's more inclusive.
Very much so, which is a huge plus for young writers and up and comers who, it's way more inclusive. So that show was very kind of old school. It was one of the last.
You stay in your lane.
Yeah, yeah. That was that experience. Everybody Hates Chris was more inclusive. I'd risen to co-EP.
And again, you were the only female on that show.
No, but I was the high level female.
Okay.
You have to see what's going on. Sometimes the younger writers come to you. I found myself kind of in a mentoring position at times with that. Working with Ali Leroy was amazing. It was just amazing, and I really learned just a lot from him. And also Don Rio. The thing I learned about Don Rio, okay, this is good. Don Rio is a legend.
Yes.
Started with Jackie Gleason.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
But he did My Wife and Kids. He's got like 4
Yes.
series that have gone, massive.
He's on the Norman Lear level.
Yeah. He really is.
So Don Rio, you learned a lot from him.
I really did. He never had doubts. He never stopped himself. So let's say we were trying to break a story and everybody's kind of pitching around the room, and then he'd go, yeah, okay, I got it. And then he'd just like do some little notes, and then he'd have the story. And maybe it wasn't great, and maybe it had to be changed a lot. There was just this innate flow in him that I recognized. I've taken that with me. That year was like the very best year I ever had. I sold like, I think 6 projects.
Wow.
It was crazy. And it was just like, yeah, I can do it. Just don't overthink it. Just do it. Just do it. It was just do it. And it was beautiful to see it in action.
One of the through lines in this is how you have continued to reinvent yourself.
Out of sheer necessity.
There was something in you that said, I want to add this, I want to add this. I mean, the truth is that you could have stayed an actor and you would have done well because of your skill set and because of your pool of work. You would always work.
Yeah.
I mean,
I hit 40. I saw my husband, I'll never forget, we were at the dinner table and he goes, we need to just talk about our life and whatever, and he takes an old napkin, grabs a pen, and he goes, this is what's happening with your career. And he literally does, shh.
Thanks, Max.
And I wish to God I had kept that freaking napkin and I would have framed it in a gold frame. I got so mad, but I mean, he wasn't wrong. Actresses, if you hit a certain age, it's not the same. It's not the same. Right. Dancing is a very obviously physical art. There's not a whole lot of brain. Then you add acting, which does have a little bit more brain. It's still an interpretive art. You're interpreting someone else's words. And I started feeling that wasn't enough for me. Now, it's enough for a lot of people, and they have magnificent careers. Writing really allows you to express what you want to say, life. You're able to present whatever it is you want to present with your writing. So that's like a whole different area. So I had the need to go to that place. Acting just became not enough. So that's why I always recommend for actors to start writing early. You know, just write yourself a monologue, write yourself a little one act. You never know where that's going to lead you.
And I'm a big believer in content creation, not just writing, but doing your own projects.
Especially nowadays.
That's right. There's no excuse. When we started,
there is no excuse.
When we started, it was a little different, but we also didn't let things stop us. I think it's important to keep reinventing yourself as you're going.
Be rigorously honest with yourself. You know, you go, oh, you would have acted, maybe, but not as much. The roles were not as good. You know, you have to really do that graph thing.
Yeah.
Really be cold and analytical about your career. I mean, that's what drove me. I went, okay, you know, I'm either going to retire and become a housewife, which I was terrified, you know, I'm like, no, not that. So that is what drove me to writing and to working so hard.
When we were in our 20s, we started writing goals down. I don't know if you remember that. We would sit at your table, we would listen to David Viscott.
Yes.
And we would
yes.
pull out our index cards, and we would start writing our goals, what we wanted to do, where we wanted to go.
You were much better at that than
I still
was.
I am a goal setter for life.
Yeah, I wasn't so much.
At that age, it was very important to have partnership, to have somebody that you could do that with. From being part of actors rapping together, to doing the goals, to having artists that you align with.
Your little community.
That's right. And boost each other up.
Yes.
You know, the goal setting and doing it in a safe group, in a safe, you know, where you have artists that have similar mindset of going forward, of making a difference, of doing something. Because you don't want to do that with anybody and have them crush you.
No.
But to work on your goals and think big. I'm a big believer in thinking big. Even if you don't get where you want to go, you're going to get a lot further than where you were. And the other thing is...
Flashes.
There he goes. Let's calm down. Hell no.
It was so much pressure.
But the other thing that hit me was you helped me with stand-up material. And you went with me the first time I got up on a stand-up stage. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't remember that.
We went the LA Cabaret, which is no longer in existence, but you went with me and I got up on stage and did 5 minutes.
Yeah.
How important that was for me to have that kind of support. You need a buddy. You need somebody who believes in you, that you believe in. What is so great about our friendship? Because I think, you know, we could talk about work and we could talk about career and all of that, but in that journey, you have to have good friends. You have to have people who hold you to the fire, who tell you the truth, who push you, who calm you down.
But also what you were amazing at, you go, of course you can do it. Of course you can do it. I mean, there was never a question of, you know, when
let's go.
I
when
was
are we
the more
doing this?
doubtful one.
Let's go. Let's do this.
I was like, and you're like, of course. So,
and we would go to the movie studios and drop off pictures and resumes. We would go to the lunches. We would just show up. When I first came out here, I didn't really know anybody. And so I was just going wherever I could, you know, trying to figure it out, doing Beautiful Senoritas and meeting you and meeting everybody. Because I think that was my first really big entree. I was doing background work and I was working in radio and records, but it was different. It was a whole different thing. Working as a background actor, nobody gives you any time to have a project that you're on and meet somebody that you connect with, and you know, so many years later, we're still connected. It is invaluable. It is so important for actors, writers, producers, directors, anybody who's coming in, and people who are already doing it, and maybe you feel alone, you feel like you don't have anybody. You need to pull on your friends. You need to say, hey, let's get together. Let's have a powwow. Let's do a brainstorm, you know, because this wouldn't have happened if you didn't grab the people.
But what you're saying, I mean, it's an interesting thing. You don't know what project or what little play or what little seminar is going to lead to what. That is kind of what's exciting about starting a career. It's like you're very eager and you should go to everything. Having said that, then at some point you have to then go, well, I don't know if this is going to be a waste of time, but who knows? I mean, our relationship and our friendship became far more valuable than like that play, which, you know, was it a hit? Was it not a hit? Who knows? Who remembers? Who cares? Starting out, just kind of casting your bread on the waters and just doing a lot of things. I say that carefully because obviously you can.
Well, you want to have a focus of where you're going, so that you're doing stuff that's important to where you want to go, not just.
But don't prejudge. Like
right.
My
writing
open. Career with Jeff Valdez, he gave me my first job, and for that I will always be grateful. I just met him going to the Writers Guild and to the Latino committee. That was my one lifeline. I knew nobody else in writing, nothing, and I would go once a month, and I couldn't wait to go. That's how I got my first job.
So show up, meet people, connect, and have vision for your future. It is so important. On the friendship thing, one of the things that I admire about you is that you have been able to sustain many long-term friendships. You have been really good about connecting and making sure you keep those people close to you. And you've been married a long time, and you and your husband do really well together. I mean, you guys are a great example of a success couple in Hollywood, of a couple who has not only endured, but you love each other and you like each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have fun together. Part of being an artist in this business is you got to like the people around you, and you gotta enjoy them. You know, if you don't like them, get yourself to new people, but don't keep getting new people, because the problem may be you.
Yeah.
You know, I just think it's important that as artists we have that flow, not just in work but with people, that we can communicate with people, that we feel comfortable, we feel safe, we feel loved, and we feel supported.
Yeah.
And you've been really good at that, at keeping that around you. I think that you are brilliant. I think that you are probably one of the smartest people that I know, one of the most talented people. You also are a generous, kind person, and you're good at connecting people. You're good at bringing people to your table. And that is wonderful. You know, that for me, when I was young, being able to come to your mother's table on Sundays or Saturdays or whatever, or having you guys let me come with you, even though we had many adventures, it was so vital for me. It really helped me. It also gave me an opportunity to see a culture and a world that I didn't really know. It was wonderful, and I just want to thank you for it, and I applaud you for not just your longevity in this business, but to be able to carve out your niche, to be able to do stuff that on paper would be a no-no. You have superseded
odds.
That's right. Many, not just once, but many times. You are one of our Latina heroes. You are one of those people in media. If it wasn't for you, doors would not be open. You got to go in there first and open the door. And because of your goodness and because of your easygoingness, they allowed others of us in. So thank you so much, and thank you for taking out the time to talk to us. You tell everybody about Luisa Leschin. Look her up on IMDb. She's got a long list of credits. Check out her website, luisaleschin.com.